In our society, drug culture seems to be glorified and is seen as a viable way of life. This seems to be the trend in our media and entertainment industry, as artists rap about the many drugs they've done, and films depict how fun drugs can be. Today's youth idolize fame, money, and drugs, and those become their goals in life. Current statistical evidence shows that about 21 million Americans have some type of addiction, but only about 10% of them actually receive treatment. Drug overdose deaths have tripled since 1990. If it's common knowledge of how damaging drug culture can be and how it can deteriorate someone's life to nothing, then why is drug use still so relevant? Why do we see so much glorification of this devastating thing? The common denominator in all these depictions is the notion that the glorification of drugs came from the lack of stimulus in these people's lives, be it from the lack of community or simply a lack of interest in everyday activities. I want to propose and argue that drug culture is so prevalent because humans are bored and seek an outlet where they can let go. After people begin to use substances as a mental escape from boredom on a regular basis, it becomes difficult to face that boredom again sober. This is how easily an addiction can begin, and also the reason why people in recovery often have to deal with the risk of boredom, leading them to relapse. Music and film are one of the most influential forms of media nowadays, so it's worrying to see how much drugs are referenced in both. The hip-hop and rap industry emphasize the high life that comes from addiction, and they link their fame and riches to this. An example of this is rapper Lil Peep, who died 2 years ago from a drug overdose, who literally has a song named Drugs. The entire song is about his drug use and the fun it comes with it. In the song, he raps, Mud is the street name for the drug MDMA, also known as ecstasy. Bud is a slang term for the drug cannabis, also called marijuana, weed, or pot. The name is derived from the buds on the cannabis plant. Drank is another name for codeine, also known as lean. Promethazine with codeine syrup is used to treat coughs in medicine, but when mixed with soda to make the taste nicer, the syrup is abused and used recreationally. It is regularly glamorized by popular culture. He speaks of escaping reality in this song, especially in the line, "Only do it for the pain, it be fucking up my brain." The most messed up part is that this is all public. On Instagram, in the hours leading up to his death, he said he was taking magic mushrooms and honey. Honey is a kind of super concentrated version of pot turned into a wax. Various pictures see him with an unidentified substance broken into pieces on his tongue. He is also filmed dropping bars of Xanax into his mouth. Xanax is an anxiety medication that has recently become a fashionable drug in rap. This is what today's teens look up to, an escape that seats their boredom and brings them to the brink of death. CRC Health points out that according to a study by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, teenagers who are frequently bored increase their chances for substance abuse by 50%. The study identified 2 other risk factors for teen substance abuse, which were having $25 or more a week in spending money and being under stress. If a teen is bored and has one or both of the other risk factors, their chances of becoming a substance abuser increases by an outstanding 300% compared to teens without any risk factors. The boredom of everyday activities seems to be the common trend. Boyle's Trainspotting showcases several characters that are driven by addiction, mainly focusing on Renton's journey. Why does he do drugs? For pleasure and because he's bored with life, according to the following movie clip.
Choose life. Choose a job. Choose a career. Choose a family. Choose a fucking big television. Choose washing machines, cars, compact displays and electrical tin openers. Choose good health, low cholesterol and dental insurance. Choose fixed interest mortgage repayments. Choose a starter home. Choose your friends. Choose leisure wear and matching luggage. Choose a 3-piece suite on hire purchase and a range of fucking fabrics. Choose DIY and wondering who the fuck you are on a Sunday morning. Choose sitting on that couch watching mind-numbing, spirit-crushing game shows, stuffing fucking junk food into your mouth. Choose rotting away at the end of it all, pissing your last in a miserable home, nothing more than an embarrassment to the selfish, fucked up brats that you've spawned to replace yourselves. Choose your future. Choose life. But why would I want to do a thing like that? I chose not to choose life. I chose something else. And the reasons? There are no reasons. Who needs reasons when you've got heroin?
In the last part of his monologue, where he says, and I quote, "I chose not to choose life. I chose something else. And the reasons? There are no reasons. Who needs reasons when you've got heroin?" End quote. He finds everyday activities numbing and boring, so he chooses the high life. Renton is seen harming those around him because of his addiction, but at the same time, we are shown how strong his addiction and how controlling it really is. This film goes into depth into the mindset of junkies and how all they think about is their next dose of drugs and how this is freeing to them because there is nothing else they care about. None of the film addicts can trust any of the others, as all continue their mental decline with one ending up literally in the gutter. The use of color, special effects, flashback and flash forward, varying film speed, and fast editing allow the film the opportunity to recreate the hallucinogenic experience for the audience watching. Trainspotting hits home even harder at the film's darkest moment. Renton's response to Allison's tragedy is to cook up. Despite Renton's good nature and upbeat attitude, his personality hides a more intense lack of empathy and loyalty that may be glossed over by the viewers. This is because the pleasure he feels is so highly emphasized. He describes a heroin trip as being 1,000 times better than the best orgasm. Putting so much emphasis and showcasing all the ways being highest pleasurable to him leads to a lack of call to action in the legislation of heroin by portraying addicts as functioning individuals of society. As pointed out by Professor Cook in 1996, the film portrays addicts, and I quote, "not as crazed radicals, not junkies on a slow decline into the gutter, but discerning consumers who decide exactly how much they want to take, when, where, and how often," end quote. Even Boyle himself in an interview pointed out the purpose for the movie wasn't a moral agenda. And I quote, "That isn't what drugs are about. When you take drugs, you have a fucking great time, unless you're very unlucky. We wanted the film to capture that. There's half of the film which is obviously considerably darker. If you prolong the experience with drugs, your life will darken. The film doesn't try to hide that, but it also doesn't try to hobble along with the moral consensus." End quote. So despite its clear-cut depiction of drug abuse, this, like every other film, praises the trips a bit too much. If real-life examples, like Lil Peep's overdose, and film depictions like Renton's case in Trainspotting aren't enough, scientific proof has also been discovered. Lack of stimulus from a lack of community and the boredom of having nothing to do and how it leads to addiction has been scientifically linked and supported and proved by a study called Rat Park. Dr. Bruce Alexander conducted an experiment in the 1970s where rats were placed in a cage all alone with no other community of rats and offered 2 water bottles, one filled with water and the other with heroin or cocaine. The rats would repeatedly drink from the drug-laced bottles until they all overdosed and died. They were relentless until their bodies and brains were overcome and they died. Dr. Alexander wondered if it was more than isolation and the lack of activities. To test his hypothesis, he put rats in rat parks, where they were among others and free to roam and play, to socialize and to have sex. And they were given the same access to the same 2 types of drug-laced bottles. When inhabiting a rat park, they remarkably preferred the plain water. Even if they did drink from the drug-filled bottle, they did so intermittently, not obsessively, and never overdosed. A social community and activities beat the power of drugs and addiction. As shown here, a community provides a positive stimulus to an individual, and the aspect of having something to do and keep busy beats out boredom and the possibility of falling into risky behavior. In conclusion, boredom can be directly linked to addiction. But why does it all matter? Why should we care? We should care because according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, just in 2017, 70,237 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States. It increased by 9.6% from 2016. It was higher among the younger generations, ages ranging from 15 to 34, because they are the most impressionable and at a higher risk of developing an addiction. We should care because we have to change the way drugs are portrayed in the media and the way we deal with boredom, or nothing will change and the death toll numbers will keep steadily increasing every single year, like the last 2 decades. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something from this video.